Well, welcome to week one of a 6-week course of English 153 Introduction to Literature. By now, I'm hoping that you have watched the video at the top of the homepage where I sort of introduce you to the course and the course goals and some of the method to my madness, that kind of thing. So what I'd like to do is I want to make sure you watch that video, but now I want to jump right into what I call the week one overview video. And what I do is I do these videos every week to help walk you through some of the goals, some of the assignments, and some of the readings for that week. Okay, so jumping right in, this week is about what's called critical approaches to reading. It's about literary theory. It's not about symbolism, okay? I'm not into symbolism, and most authors aren't really writing with symbolism in mind. They're writing with reality in mind. They're writing with history in mind. They're writing with daily developments in terms of how people interact with each other, okay? So symbolism is kind of a outdated way to approach literature. All right, it's still used. A rose means love, that kind of thing. But we're not into symbolism in this class. Instead, we're into reading the literature for fun. We're into reading the literature to learn about history. We're into reading the literature to learn about other cultures. We're into the literature, reading the literature to learn about other people. Okay, we're in it to learn about the world around us. Right now, that said, there are some ways to view the literature in terms of what the author is saying, all right? And not all authors would agree with this, okay? Sometimes we'd apply too much theory to an author, and the author throws their hands up and says, no, that's not what I'm doing. I'm just writing a story. That's fair too, okay? And it's also completely fair to read literature, anything, Stephen King, anybody, for fun, okay? We should have fun in this class. That's my goal. And also, I'd like for you to learn about the world around you, that kind of thing, and introduce you to some really great authors, and maybe help make you a lifelong reader, okay? I just finished yesterday for, I bet, the 20th time, the whole Lord of the Rings trilogy. I just love it. In these trying times, right, where there's too much to think about, I just settled down and read all 3 books and really enjoyed myself, okay? So a great way to decompress. So anyway, this is week one. It starts today, Monday, May 11th. It's over Sunday night, May 17th. Your first due dates are this Thursday. You have 2 discussions, which I'll walk you through in a minute. And then you have 1 essay due by Sunday night. Okay, discussions, it's very important to remember. I've covered this once already in the overview video. A discussion requires that you make a response to the questions that I pose, okay, in the discussion forum. And it also means you need to make a response to a peer. It's not a discussion if you don't talk to your peers. I'm trying to replicate the best aspects of a face-to-face classroom. And you can actually do that through discussion forums. Okay, you get to know each other, you get to think differently about the literature, that kind of thing, when you read other students' posts and you respond to at least one. Okay, so that said, I'm going down here, there's quite a few videos to watch. They're not long, they're kind of fun. There's one about feminist criticism, which is heavily applied in this unit. There's one about post-colonial literary criticism, which I'll tell you about in a second. And then there's one about Marxist theory. There's also introduction to literature, introduction to theater. There's one about Henrik Ibsen. That's a play I'd like for you to read, okay? And there's one about Chinua Achebe, and that's a short story, okay? And you can read, I'd like for you to read both, but you're only going to write about one of them, okay, which is going to be helpful, okay? Then there's also a couple of short readings, Why We Read Fiction. There's a great short story. It's not so short. It's a pretty detailed story. Things Fall Apart. And then there's A Doll's House by Henrik Ibsen. So I'd like for you to look at all of that. And also be sure to look at the video about how and why we read. I'll talk about that later this week. I'll come back to these when we do discussions throughout the week. I'll come back and post a few thoughts in those too in terms of these videos. So briefly, let me go over feminist criticism. You don't have to be a feminist to get this, all right? Feminism is, of course, misunderstood. Most students don't realize that without feminism, you'd have no access to birth control. Okay, early feminists really pioneered that, made it legal. It used to be illegal. So that said, and of course, women couldn't vote, right? And feminists helped take care of that. So first of all, literary theory allows you to look at a work in terms of its sort of historical components, in terms of how it's relating to history. All right. So, for example, feminist criticism probably applies most specifically in this unit to the Henrik Ibsen play, to Doll's House, and many of you may have read that in high school, all right? And I'm not going to go into it in detail, but it's about a woman, right, who feels constrained and about her times, right? I think this is about the late 1800s, all right? So if you'll look at the video about feminist criticism, it'll help you understand, and by criticism, by the way, we don't mean being critical of each other, right, or complaining about each other. Criticism is also a term used to kind of, what do I want to say, separate out the elements of something. To critique something is to look at its elements, right? Like when you're going to go out and buy a new car, you critique it. All right, you think about the paint job, you think about the wheels, the wheel rims, you think about the size of the engine, the type of engine, the horsepower of the engine, you think about the type of seats, the leather, that kind of thing. That's a critique. All right, so the same way with criticism. So feminist criticism looks at issues in terms of the power struggle between genders. All right, almost all criticism is about power. All right, so historically, there's always been a power struggle between genders, right? There's been certain elements placed on men, there's been certain elements placed on women, and feminist criticism tends to look at it and say, well, what's fair, what's not fair, how is this working, okay? And for years, of course, it didn't work. Women were not allowed into the major colleges. There were always some exceptions, but as late as the 1950s, women could not attend Princeton, right? That same period of time, women could not go to medical school. Medical schools just didn't accept women, right? Always some exceptions, all right? Law school, women couldn't get into law school. Those of you who are veterans, when I was in the Army, okay, in basic training, I went to basic training, Fort Bragg, 1969, summer of 69, Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Absolutely no women any place on the post, okay, at least in uniform, all right? And then when I served overseas in Germany, the only women you saw in uniform were maybe nurses or a quartermaster corps, something like that, okay, which wasn't very good for the women because you can't get promoted unless you can get into a battlefield type MOS, that kind of thing, all right? So there was that. What else did I want to say? Anyhow, so feminist criticism is interesting to everybody, okay? Then you get to post-colonial literary criticism, and you have to know a little bit about history. You have to understand this. I think some of you know by now that I used to live in Malaysia, teaching for Trine University at a local school in a beautiful town called Malacca, all right? And I taught there for 2 years, a very interesting time, okay? Well, Malaysia was a British colony for 100 years, and before that it was a Dutch colony, and before that it was a Portuguese colony. So what that meant is that the European powers came over, kind of conquered these countries or took them over one way or another and used their resources to ship back to Britain and make a lot of money and that kind of thing, often leaving the local population impoverished, all right? And this happened completely around the world, all right? And even the United States did it. We did it to the Philippines. We did it to a lot of the Pacific Islands, Guam, Midway, that kind of thing, and Hawaii, all right? And so, and then, of course, it really was the case in Africa. The U.S. wasn't involved in Africa, but Spain and Portugal and England and Germany and Holland, the Netherlands were all involved, taking over countries in Africa. And the point was to exploit their resources. Same way with India. Okay, so that's post-colonial literary criticism, meaning that you're looking at what happened since the colonial times, or what did the colonial times do to these countries. All right, and then you get to Marxist literary criticism, literary theory. And I'm using theory and criticism, the same interchangeable terms, all right? And Marxist literary theory is not about communism, okay? Not at all. What it is, it's about the power struggle between elements of society, right? And it does tend to critique capitalism. It's not saying that capitalism is bad. There's no better system in the world that works better and that's most natural to people than capitalism, okay? But there's different forms of capitalism. There are different extremes of capitalism, all right? And some of you already are aware that it's not always working that well in this country. The wealth disparity has become absolutely huge, okay? And that's where capitalism is failing. So Marxist literary theory sort of looks at that. It looks at power struggles between elements of society, okay? So to repeat, to kind of summarize here about critical theory, feminist criticism looks at power imbalances between genders. Post-colonial literary criticism looks at the power imbalances between European powers and native people of countries, okay? And then Marxist literary theory looks at the power struggle between different elements of capitalism, all right? And it's not saying capitalism is bad. It's not asking you to be communist or anything like that, okay? It's looking at power struggles. And it can be very, very illuminating. It can be very actually interesting. You say, oh, wow, look at this. Look at what this author is doing here, okay? And what they're all doing is they're talking about history, okay? So, please look at the videos. They're fun, okay? They're one's 10, one's 17 minutes. So this takes some time. By the way, this is a very busy class, all right? There's a lot going on. There's a lot to read, a lot to look at. It's a compressed 6-week course. It covers the exact same material as an 8-week course. And even an 8-week course, I really pile the literature in there, okay? So, and I picked it out very carefully for you, all right? There's no busy work at all. Okay, so that's pretty much it. First discussion, you click there. This is due Thursday night. Okay, make one response. After reading the short magazine article about why read fiction, respond in 2 detailed paragraphs about your own feelings towards reading. Do you read regularly? That kind of thing. And there are no right or wrong answers here. I'm just asking you to have a discussion. It's that simple. Okay, let's go down to the second discussion. Also due Thursday night. Okay, discussion 2. After watching the video lecture on how and why we read, reflect on these issues. How do authors help us get their meaning? I'll let you read that. I'm not going to read that, but that's the second discussion. Thursday night, Sunday night. Thursday night, respond to this. Sunday night, respond by Sunday night, respond to appear. Okay, then let's get down to the essay. The essay is going to take some thinking. Okay, you can't. Oh, by the way, you cannot wait till the last minute to do this course. It doesn't work. All right, do not wait till Sunday night to start your essay. You cannot do that. Okay. So week 1 essay, I'm a fair grader, okay, but there's certain things I'm looking for, and if they're not there, you don't get the grade you maybe hoped for, okay. So the first essay, and they're all similar, okay, read either the Achibi short story Things Fall Apart, okay, and or the Ibsen play, which is longer, all right, and apply one or more of the critical approaches that I just discussed to the reading in an APA formatted 3-page essay. And when I say 3 pages, I really mean that because I'm looking for a lot of detail. I'm looking for a lot of examples. All right, it takes 3 pages to get all this across, at least 3 pages. Okay, don't do 2.5. Don't put a lot of extra spacing in it. Okay, I've taught this class many, many years. All right, don't try to fool me. Okay, when I say 3, I mean 3. If you want to do 4, if you want to do 5, that's terrific, but don't do 2.5. That doesn't work for me. Okay. And then I want you to use direct quotes, all right? And I do provide a student example. Please look at that, okay? And I do provide a rubric telling you how I'm going to grade it, all right? Please look at that. And I'm looking for direct quotes. So the purpose of direct quotes, that's where you lift the material right from the author, is not to make your points, but to illustrate your points, to show the reader, which in this case is me, how did you arrive at this point that you're trying to make? So the direct quotes are very, very important. Now, if this is something that you're not well familiar with or not good at yet, I have plenty of material here to help walk you through it. I'm not going to teach you that. That's a writing class. But right here, how to quote poetry, how to quote drama, how to integrate quotes, it's all right there, okay? That helps you get going on the quoting. And the quoting is very important. The other thing I'm looking for in these essays are well-focused paragraphs. Make just 1 point in a paragraph, please, 1 point. Develop it, that point, use some quotes to illustrate that point, then move on to the next paragraph, the next point. Now, some points might take several paragraphs. I get that. But I don't want to see a full page of just 1 paragraph, all right? Generally speaking, a well-written essay, a well-focused essay is going to have about 3 paragraphs per page. You may have more, right? You may have 2, okay? But those are pretty long. Readers have trouble seeing the point you're trying to make, and you're often wondering when the paragraphs get too big. So stay focused. Think of a thought you want to make it as your topic sentence, then start talking about that thought, right? Then start pulling some quotes, and don't get them too long, okay? Don't let the quotes do the writing for you, all right? Bring those into that paragraph to illustrate the point you made, then move on, okay? Let's see, do I have anything else? Okay, I think that's it. I'm always open to questions. I read my email all the time, all right? Please don't wait till Sunday to ask me questions. Please don't wait till Sunday night to do the readings. It's not going to work for you, okay? So, hey, good luck, and I really want you to enjoy the class. I certainly enjoy teaching it. And let's see, what do I need to do here? I need to find out how to turn this off now. Okay, so good luck, okay? Yeah. There we go. Stop recording.